This podcast may contain paid advertisements, but more on that later. Welcome to the O'Connor Bootstrap podcast, where I discuss the nuts and bolts of business and leadership, with a focus on bootstrapping a business from the ground up. This podcast is for all entrepreneurs, bootstrappers, and leaders in all walks of life. My goal is to help you grow both personally and professionally. I am your host, Isaiah O'Connor. Okay, so welcome to the O'Connor Bootstrap podcast, and today my guest is the founder of Atheoz.com, where this podcast is hosted, and my business partner, Jason St.Clair. And we've had conversations with them before, and so I'm going to continue on with a subject that I was actually just talking about with Harrison Houghton, I can never pronounce his name, and that is billing. That's a subject I haven't talked about very much, and this is kind of a part two of talking about that. So, how do you bill, Jason? How do you get paid?
Actually, there's a couple different ways. I'm actually, one personally through the consulting business, I actually ask for money up front for my consulting. Just because I've been burnt so many times in the past, and I know it kind of kills new customers that come in and want to work with me, but right now I'm okay with it. However, I'm also working as a business consultant currently for a couple athletic clubs, in which way they handle billing is a month-to-month basis on a kind of like it is a subscription based. If you think about it, it's one of the original subscription-based models. It's a gym. It comes out on the first every month, and that's pretty much it. You know, you got like Netflix and everybody else kind of copying that, I guess, original type of subscription-based model, except, you know, in a digital platform. And a lot of companies are actually migrating towards something like that because it's instead of being totally reliant on, say, sponsorship and stuff like that, they run to a subscription-based model, which they're having a lot of success with. However, in terms of billing an Atheoz as my individual consulting, I ask for money up front, and I basically deliver what I promise, over-deliver what I promise. So that's how I run billing.
You know, it's really funny, or maybe not so much, but a coincidence. I just recorded a very short podcast with Harrison for next week because he didn't have a lot of time. And you know me, when we first made the call, I got off subject and I wasn't recording quite yet. But one thing he said the same type of thing. He does consulting. I know you listened to the podcast last time, and he does magic and hypnotist consulting, and he does consulting clients. And he says the same exact thing. He over-promises. Yeah. Other way, strike it, reverse it. He under-promises and over-delivers and always asks for money up front. And he had to run suddenly, so I wasn't able to kind of wrap it up in a nutshell. But I do the same. I've had to learn to do the same thing. Now, I've got a couple of massive companies that I've worked with for years, and I do the event, I send the bill after the event because that's the way their accounting system works, and then they're happy with it. And they pay me every single time, and they've even rushed payments when I've called them and said, hey, for some reason or other, I need a rush on this payment, they'll do it. And we have a good working relationship with them.
There's definitely, instances where there's, where you're absolutely running like an account for a business. And on that flip side, we operate, the companies that I work with, some of them, that run consult, we operate on that type of thing. We order goods, right, to say if they're running like the, energy drinks or water or the juice bar, we order goods. They don't ask for the, to pay up until the end. The same thing, remember, when we were working in the arcade as youngins, it's the same thing with the distributors, like the toy company, the toys that
Hold on, I lost you there for a second.
The billing. at the end of the month because they know. What's that?
Okay, say that again. Sorry, I lost the connection there for a second. You went,
So
when we're working back at the arcade, you were saying something about that. I didn't quite catch it.
So for instance, when you're like back at the arcade, when we were young, we were working back at the arcade. The way that the arcade would work with goods and stuff is that you would order and then they would ask for the money at the end of the month. That's fine if you're working with a company that's a known company that's reliable, et cetera, et cetera. But even in a situation like that, the company, when the Harris Caesar's Corporation went under, right? They were ordering stuff, but they weren't paying it back at the end. So that company actually, the distributor actually ended up getting burned. And they said, "We're not going to do it anymore. You need to pay us up front for our goods." So something like that, trust can be easily lost in a situation like that. Because if you think if it's a huge order, you could be out like tens of thousands of dollars. So that's like a balancing act that you have to take. Was like, hey, I trust you as someone who's going to buy my product and pay me. But on the flip side, you never know exactly what their balance sheet is,
Yeah. This year, I've been burned for, I think, around $1,000 in 2 clients who just ghosted me, never paid, never answered the phone, and never paid, like I just said. But the thing is, last year, because of COVID, my company only netted, my taxable income was only around $2,500 US for the entire year.
Yeah.
So
that's a huge chunk.
Yeah, it was a huge chunk. And I had a lot of cancellations, of course, this year because of COVID. But overall, when you do the work and you don't get paid, and they have to call collections and it's a pain in the butt. So I've kind of been working on changing my business policy to advance payment only, even if you're a company, up and until we establish that we've worked together enough times that I can trust that you're going to pay, and then we can start talking about setting up an account. But it's all a trust-based thing, and everyone else you have to pay up front before the work's done. And one thing I was talking about, Harrison, is if the client is not happy, it's better to refund the money, or if there's a cancellation, you have to refund the money or whatever, then you do that. But it's better to refund the money than never get paid.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And because you got to pay the lights, you got to pay the bills, you got to. That's the thing. It's not.
Billing is a.
Go ahead.
Billing is a very tricky thing because you don't want to hurt the feelings either on the other side because you never know who you're dealing with. You're still dealing with people. And say, for instance, if you were working with that customer for a long time and you suddenly said, "Hey, I want money up front," it's like, well, what did I do to you if they've been good forever? And it's like, well, I just changed my business model. That could absolutely burn that customer. It is definitely a balancing act. If you're starting out, I would definitely try to collect the money up front. That as a bootstrapper. That would be my best suggestion, especially if you're offering services, because as a bootstrapper, you can't afford like 1 or 2 losses. It'll absolutely be devastating to your company.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, when it comes to billing, I think the best way to go is upfront, establish a relationship and say, well, now that we know that you pay up front, if there's a change and it's easier for your accounting system or whatever, because especially with a large corporation, I had one of the biggest grocery chains here in Norway. Yeah. I mean, we're talking the size of like Safeway back in California or something along the Rayleigh's, a massive supermarket chain. And they decided to up and update their billing system, and they managed to delete and lose most of the bills and everything else. And it took me something like 6 to 8 months to get paid.
Wow.
Yeah. And I knew they were going to pay, but then I started doubting it because, I mean, it'd be like Costco. There's a nationwide chain, or Walmart. Can you imagine building Walmart and then just sitting on it for months and months and months and months?
I think in a situation like that, you have to understand. You'd have to take that like, hey, I'm doing this job and I'm not going to get paid for it 8 months. So you have to know that too. You have to expect that if you're going to take a job like that from a big corporation who has thousands of hundreds of thousands or millions of like invoices they have to pay.
Yeah, and with that one, I had done the job before, and they paid within the normal 10 or 15 days I billed them out at. But it was all of a sudden, boom. And I found with most corporations, they want a 30-day billing time, at least in Norway.
Yeah.
And you have to look at their accounting department. It can get tricky too. Asking for advance payment, you have to kind of fight through. I mean, even when I was like, kid, how many times did they?
Corporate,
That's where it comes harder to corporate. But then you made a good point. When you're offering a service, it's much harder to get paid than when you're offering a good.
Yeah.
Because there's always that doubt of, will the service be delivered on time? What happens if you're prepaying for a service and they don't show up? Will I get my money back if you're the client? I'm going to pay for the service. What happens if the clown I pay for gets sick and doesn't show up for my party? Do they have another clown? Will I get my money back? Are they so it's a trust both ways. But with a good, for example, my sister-in-law, or soon-to-be sister-in-law, my brother's fiance, whatever, she just started a new business. I don't know if you saw that, and she's doing some great work. She's making some roses out of silk, really great stuff, and she's selling it. But you take the payment, and she sends the flower. Period.
Yeah, that's a good thing. You know, and you also have to consider this. If you're going to be a mechanic or someone who fixes things, you definitely almost have no choice but to collect it at the end. So you're almost putting yourself out there all the time where it's like, hey, thanks for doing the job, but like if you're a plumber, you go out, thanks for doing the job, but I can't pay you. There's a chance you get absolutely screwed in that situation. Yeah. But that is the type of work that you're in, and that is a risk that you take by doing jobs like that.
I think the best way to buffer something like that is a contractual signed agreement before work is started, where I'm going to do this work for X amount. You know, at least a basic one. You can download a boilerplate copy online that meets all the basic requirements and just change a little bit. Matter of fact, I started with contracts in the balloon world. I kind of faded off of them because contracts are great for corporations, but private customers who just want you for an hour at a balloon for their birthday party get weirded out by signing a contract.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky thing, and it's one of those subjects that never really thought of until this year, even that was mentioned last time, because especially with the service industry, you go into a restaurant, even in a restaurant, you pay after the meal. Ever notice that? You pay after the meal. You don't pay before.
Yep.
You don't pay up front. So, unless it's McDonald's or something, which that almost doesn't count.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, that's just the way that McDonald's set up their business plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a restaurant. It's just designed differently. It's like, hey, you pay me first, I'll give you the food. Where on the flip side, the rest, a sit-down restaurant, which McDonald's absolutely is too. You know what I mean? Is you pay me first, I give you the money. Where on the other side, I'll give you the food first, and you pay me the money. The benefits in that, I think, if you're running a restaurant, is the cost, is the amount of money that you can make is a lot greater as a small business owner, I think, than like a fast food design, because now you're like bringing up a gigantic bill, a potentially huge bill that you can collect. There's alcohol, there's desserts, etc., that you feel you get into the mood to start ordering when you're sitting down and like eating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas
and if you have a good server,
it's just like, that's what I want. Yeah.
And a good server is going to be upselling. A lot of people don't realize that a restaurant server's job is not to bring you food, but to sell you stuff.
Yeah.
The best servers are excellent salesmen. They have to provide excellent service and upsell everything. That's why if you get a good server, they're going to say, hey, would you like some pie with your coffee? Would you like some dessert? Would you like this next? It's all suggestive selling. And it's part of the experience. Yeah. So, and that's another great point. There's different billing models for the exact same basic industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's even some crazy people that say, pay as you can. And some of these places fell, and some of them are very successful.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's an interesting. A lot of people approach things in different ways. It's all about how you run your business and the service that you provide. I think at the end of the day, if you offer a great product, a great good, or whatever it is, and people think it's worth it, then they'll get return business, and they'll keep on coming back, no matter how you build them or charge them. But with that said, you also have to consider, like, how am I going to make money in this business? Because that's what you're in it for. You know what I mean? This is capitalism. This is what you got to do.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. I got to take off, buddy.
Okay, cool. Have fun. Great for the great little interview. And catch you later.
Absolutely. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah. See ya. Bye-bye. If you found value in this content, please leave a comment and give us a 5-star rating on whichever podcast platform you use. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most other podcast platforms. If you would like to support us, you can check out our sponsor links, or if you would like to directly support the show, you can donate or join our membership program at buymeacoffee.com/bootstrap. Of course, it really helps when you share these podcasts as well. If you would like to interact with me and other bootstrappers and leaders, you can join our O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast Facebook group. You have been listening to the O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast and Atheoz Business Solutions Podcast. For our companion podcast, the Atheoz Business Podcast, hosted by Jason St.Clair, past episodes, and related blogs, check out our website at www.atheoz.com, which is www.atheoz.com, or theoz.com. Until next time, I've been your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, Isaiah O'Connor.